All right, welcome back to another episode of Between the Sales. I'm your host, Mark Simone. I've got a very good friend and colleague, Leon Robinson, here with us. Leon, thanks again for taking some time out again. I know we met just maybe about a month or so ago, and your story caught me off guard, quite frankly. They had some really very inspiring story to share that really we didn't have the time to get into much. We spent a lot of time in our last time together talking about business and your growth in the business side, but your personal journey really, I thought, is one that needs to be shared. And come to find out that you actually do share your story quite a bit and have made it a part of your life's work to share that part of your life and the things that allowed you to get to where you are today. So again, thanks for sitting down with us. And for those who may not remember, first, I guess, you're from Baltimore. So if we can, in a short period of time here, you grew up in Baltimore, in the city. What part of the city?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me again. It's definitely been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to, tapping more into my story. But I literally lived all over Baltimore. I grew up, was born and raised over East Baltimore. I was born at Johns Hopkins Hospital. I lived down the hill, Latrobe Projects, right off of Greenmount. Lived off of Federal and Milton, Bonaparte and Aiken. So that's where I was born and raised. I've lived over West Baltimore as well, the city. My childhood was kind of like scattered. I lived in a lot of different places. So when someone asks me, like, what part of Baltimore you're from or what high school you went to, because that tells, like, where you're from.
Right.
I say I'm just from Baltimore.
Right.
Like I'm legitimately a Baltimorean. And I went to school in high school in Western Tech in Catonsville. So
Okay.
I've kind of experienced both sides, man.
Yeah.
West side and east side.
Yeah. So, and moving around a lot as a kid has its own challenges too.
For sure.
Baltimore City has a whole host of problems, socioeconomic problems, that seems to be almost ingrained into the system.
Yeah.
And, I think it's easy to lose hope in a lot of the areas in Baltimore City. And, and I've experienced it firsthand. I actually, and in a very different way. Like, I didn't grow up in the city. But I had an experience once where, I was living in Fells Point and I got jumped by a group of kids.
Right.
And when we went to court, it was a juvenile court. I remember hearing the story of this young kid, and he was young. I mean, I think one of them was 12 and one of them was 16.
Right.
And the story, their family background made me really feel for them.
Mm-hmm.
It made me feel way less like they were a suspect and way more of a victim of their circumstances.
Yeah, of the environment.
And, so, it was family stuff where, the child was living with the grandmother. Like, the father was incarcerated for murder. The mother was in and out of drug rehab centers. Mm-hmm. And it was, you look at that from an outsider's, from someone who never experienced really any of those types of hardships.
Right.
And I say, how does a kid like that have a chance?
Yeah.
And, I don't know your whole story. I don't know. There's similarities and differences. But you're someone who certainly, I would say, with a Baltimore City background, beat the odds.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Definitely. Tell us, what happened? Because I know you weren't always the gleaming success story that you sit here today and are. What happened? And Go down that road if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of that definitely resonates, with me. And the man that is sitting before you today is really like a byproduct of what I experienced, as a child. Situation and circumstances, the cards that was dealt to me within my family dynamic. So to be able to go through living in the projects, being homeless, living in a shelter, living from this place to that place, not really having a solid structure, solid foundation, really gave me really the drive and the ambition and the fortitude to really want more for my life. So those experiences as a child, you don't really realize it, like, oh, I'm struggling or I'm less fortunate or, you just, this is the, environment. This is the situation or circumstance you were born in. So you just deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
But as you get older, you kind of look back, and as you mature, you grow, you see like, man, those were some tough times, to be honest with you. And when you're a child, you don't recognize the trauma. You don't recognize the emotional impact of feeling neglected emotionally, from your family, not having a tight-knit family and the support that you need, the structure that you need to really thrive, that any kid needs, So when I think about the environment and, that I grew up in, it was filled with violence and crime and drugs, even within my own family. Individuals in my family going to prison for long stints of time. Also alcoholism in my family, substance abuse, even mental illness, So to be able to navigate the situations and circumstances that I was in, I give all glory to God, number one, and my faith and my willingness to really not use that as a crutch, but always just want to use my story to inspire others. I feel like to still be here and had experienced those things as a child, they still impact me today because that's my history.
Sure.
That's my background. That's my story. So I see it from a different perspective now, and I understand that what I have been able to overcome and go through and grow through is a testimony of, God's anointing on my life, his favor. And I just live to glorify him through my work, through my journey, through everybody I encounter. I look to be generous and giving and inspiring and positive. And I've always had that energy, So, and that's the type of mentality you have to have growing up in that environment where there's nothing but negativity around you.
Well, I would say, you don't have to have it.
Right.
Because a lot of folks don't.
Exactly.
And you do. And I think that's obviously a very important factor in separating yourself from a success story and not.
Right.
And you say you always had that push, that drive. Did you really always have it? And if you did, what changed then? What was the differential for you?
I feel like you can have a drive negatively and you can have a drive positively.
Okay.
So at some point in my life, that drive turned into negative behaviors and actions and decisions that landed me in prison, at 19. Serving a 3-year sentence for a robbery. I was facing 20 charges. So understanding the power and influence that I had based on my decisions, right or wrong, going through that experience, understanding that this what happened because of the decisions I made, because of the emotional space that I was in, I shifted that drive. Because if I could have drive and do the wrong thing, the negative thing, if I focus in on myself and have the drive to do positive things, it could change my life, and that was my mentality when I was sitting in that cell. I was incarcerated for 6 months. I came home on house arrest for 90 days. I had nothing but time to really think about my life and what I wanted to do and how I wanted to bounce back. And that drive, just me going through that, ignited that drive even more.
Sure.
Because I had to redeem myself. I had to restore the life that I threw away,
Yeah.
So that drive has always been there, but I had to harness it into a positive way to really make a difference in my family's life and my life, being a leader in my family. So
Did you, when you were going through that, I mean, were there people around you that helped to pivot your focus? And I mean, or was it really the sense of solitude that you did this on your own? I mean, because I think to me, whether it's an incident like this, or some, which some people can relate to, and some people can't.
Right.
But I think one thing that I think a lot of people across the board can relate to is there being a pivotal change in their life, and that coming from some incident, or whether it's, and it could be an external incident, it can be an internal one,
right.
And it looks different to a lot of people. But the commonality is that there's some type of tipping point, and whether it's a tipping point or hitting rock bottom, there's a point where you say enough is enough.
Right.
Now and this is where change really happens.
And it happens. It still happens.
Yeah.
As you go through life, you're still gonna go through things that humbles you, that get your attention to wake you up so that you can become better.
Yeah.
So in those moments and situations, you don't recognize that because it's like all you feel is, oh man, this is not a good situation. This is painful. This is hurtful. This is dark. But if you take a moment to just really get outside of yourself and you recognize what's going on, you understand the blessing in it, especially if you're still alive and you survived it, whatever you may have gone through.
Right.
But I've always had support from my family. That's one thing that I really am really grateful for because it could have been different. The sacrifice of my family, my father, he was a very spiritual, hardworking man, overcame a lot of bad decisions and choices in his life as a young man, losing his father at an early age. Even my mom, not having a relationship with her father. Those people gave me the drive and the motivation to really make something of myself, and as well as many other people. My sister, who became my legal guardian at 22 years old. I was 12, 13. She had just had a baby. My grandmother, who's 82 years old, has always loved me and supported me and prayed for me and made sure that I was doing the right things and spoke positive things into my life. So it wasn't just me, it was my faith, obviously, in the Creator, my willpower to overcome, and not just give up. I never had that spirit of defeat or victim. The decisions I made was the choices that I made. Right. So I had to be man enough to recognize that and accept it and take responsibility for it. But the fact that I had that insulation with my family made the transition, made the opportunity to grow from those situations a lot better, and
Okay, thank you.
So I mean, it really sounds like this experience and actually going to prison and being incarcerated, you walked out a different man.
For sure. Kinda.
Okay.
And I came back with that understanding, okay, I got an opportunity to rebound and get my life back on track, but I happened to fall into some other bad behaviors, and which sent me back, which could have potentially had me serving the rest of my time. Again, got sentenced to 3 years. I did 6 months, came home on house arrest for 90 days. So I still had maybe 2 years of parole,
right.
So coming home and being locked up 2 or 3 times for possession of marijuana, things of that nature,
right.
Trying to get fast money, just still living negatively on the edge, knowing that I shouldn't be doing it, but still doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it costed me, thank God, the cases got dropped, and I didn't have to actually go back and serve, the rest of my time. But it didn't automatically click when I came back because I was still young.
Right.
You know, I came home I turned 20 when I was in prison. It's funny because one of the prisons I was in, that was in Hagerstown, that when I turned 20, November the 23rd, I think it was maybe 2009, I turned 20, and it was a blessing because I got transferred from that prison back to Baltimore.
Okay.
So I was just truly like blessed and grateful. But I mean, I say all that to say, you know, when I came home initially, it wasn't all the way there,
Right.
you know? So
Right.
I still had to kind of go through some things to really wake up. And after that, you know, I finally said, you know what, I got to focus on my degree. You know,
Right.
I start making sure I'm going to work on time and pursuing my education. And I finally was able to finish my degree at Morgan in 2015.
So in 2009, you turned 20. You were was that the first time you were incarcerated, or?
Yeah, so
Okay.
I got initially arrested in December of 2008.
Okay.
I didn't get sentenced until July 2009.
So what? So you went back. What point? I mean, what kinds of conversations or thoughts or people around you? What was happening when you decided that was the last time you're going? Because I imagine that there was probably some of that talk. Like,
Oh, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
coming back
Yeah,
here. I
yeah.
am changing
I,
that page. This is a new Leon.
Yeah, I had to really look at my surroundings. I had to look at my associations. I had to look at who I was hanging around, because our influences really impacts us, you know, more than we realize sometimes. So, you know, falling victim to peer pressure, wanting to be a part of the crowd, wanting to be cool, wanting to fit in, you know, not really embracing my uniqueness and my, you know, what makes me Leon,
Gifts.
what makes me different, my gifts and talents. And when you do that, you get caught up, you know, and I happen to be the one who has gone through, you know, those experiences because of that. So,
So did that require you like having to disassociate
Oh,
with
yeah.
a lot of people?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And what was that like? Because that's got to be a tough thing.
Oh yeah, it is tough, but at the same time, you grow. Sometimes you grow apart. You know, if you're moving in a different direction in your life, you're changing, you're evolving, you're doing things differently. You can't continue to hang around the same, you know, people. You
Right.
know, my father said, my father always told me, he said, if you go to the barbershop, you're going to get a haircut. You know, so it's like, you know, that pretty much means if you keep doing the same things, you're going to get the same results.
Right.
You know, so if I wanted to change my life, I had to change everything that was going on in my life.
Yeah.
So that's friends, that's environments, that's you know, activities. All of those things I had to really look at with a microscope and say, I need to stop that. I need to remove this person. I need to, you know, change this, you know. So it was a huge like processing.
Yeah. It requires a huge amount of intentionality
for sure.
that you know, sounds like you weren't necessarily living before, and most people don't. You know, it's really interesting when you think about how many folks are real close with like their childhood friends that they grew up with, and you know, it's a great thing. It's a great, you know, I am too. But I've also had to look at times and say, why am I friends with somebody?
Yeah.
You know, is it because my parents made the decision 30 years ago to move in this neighborhood, or do I really get value out of this friendship?
Exactly.
And when you start looking at people and relationships that way,
is it reciprocal?
Yeah.
That's what a relationship is. Or is this person just here to benefit off of you and not willing to reciprocate or provide value? You know, in any relationship, business relationship, personal relationship, friendships. So it takes.
I look at the cups, you know, like is your cup, are they filling your cup as much as you
draining you?
Or are they draining you?
And I had to realize, even to this day, I'm 33 years old, that you got to fill your own cup up first before you want to pour into other people. You know, and when you're able to do that, then people can pour into you, you know, and then you keep that cycle going, you know. But it took some trial and error to figure that out, though.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure that's an understatement.
Yeah.
Tell me, I mean, on that note, in terms of filling up cups. I mean, you aren't just someone who has been able to turn your life around and really make a mark for your life and really hopefully your legacy
For sure.
for your family. But you also are dedicating a lot of time to pouring back to that community of folks who have gone through similar experiences of being incarcerated. Tell us a little bit about that.
That's a great, I appreciate you bringing that up, because I look at my life and the experiences that I've gone through as a testimony, because I've overcame them. So it's my duty to share that and to give back to the community in which I grew up out of, so that I can provide hope and inspiration that, hey, you can also go through these experiences, but you can turn your life around also. So I truly believe that all of our experiences, they're seeds of opportunity for us to understand who we are, our purpose, what we're here for. And that's how our lives unfold. Once you realize that everything that you've gone through is a blessing and not really a negative, you use those experiences to give back to the community, to give back to the needy, to the people who need the motivation, who need hope, and it's not always easy, but that's the task that I feel like individuals like myself who have survived these experiences is, I have a duty, to serve my community in a positive way, and uplifting way.
So what do you do to serve that community? Is it to tell your story? Is it to peel back other stories? I mean, how are you actually? Because I know it's impactful. You're
It's
doing
my
some
walk.
things.
It's my walk. It's a part of my story as well, but it's my walk. It's my journey. It's what I'm doing now, how I'm living my life now.
Okay.
I think that is more impactful and inspirational, more than anything, and I feel like God has blessed me with influence. I have a great way of influencing people, and I want to influence them in a positive way with how I'm living my life.
Right. And recently, actually, you told me, so you're co-hosting a podcast, or two podcasts?
No,
or
one. Yep.
One podcast. And what was the name of that podcast?
The Breakthrough Podcast,
Yes.
Discovering New Pathways.
That's right. And who do you do that with?
I do it with the director of the EDAC program at Morgan State University, Brother Omar Muhammad.
Okay.
EDAC stands for Entrepreneurial Development and Accountability Center.
Okay.
It's a program through that center at my alma mater, Morgan State.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and when I listened to one recently, one of your podcasts, and there was this one particularly was with someone within a housing agency.
Yeah.
And I guess speak to me about like this role of yours in real estate and how it plays into this role also with being a what is the word that you use to
A returning citizen.
A returning citizen.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Thank you. How do the two align?
Yeah, or formerly incarcerated, but the two align because being in real estate, learning about the power of real estate and with respects to wealth, financial freedom, and the correlation between what a lot of people are doing negatively to try to obtain wealth and money. Me having this experience in real estate, being on this podcast as a co-host with returning citizens who are starting businesses, who are now aspiring to be entrepreneurs, gives me continued motivation to keep telling my story. And also, it aligns because you can shift your behaviors and your actions from what you're doing negatively that may have sent you to prison to something positive, like real estate or whatever business venture that you may have. So to be able to co-host a podcast with Omar and bring on returning citizens, women and men who are formerly incarcerated, who are now starting businesses and now pursuing entrepreneurship, is like, it's perfect. It completely aligns with what my journey is and what was the crystallizing moment in my life, which was being in prison, hitting rock bottom. And I'm truly grateful for the opportunity. I don't take it for granted at all. And the resources or the people that we bring on that provide resources to returning citizens are also very impactful as well. So real estate has given me that opportunity to be able to provide resources as well as inspiration to any returning citizens that may want to pivot from the skill set that may have landed them in prison, whether it's selling drugs, whether it's whatever you may be doing. You can shift that into selling real estate.
Sure.
You can shift that into a business, so that's the synergy and the alignment for me. And I'm just truly honored to be able to do it.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful thing, and I'm honored to be able to hear the story here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of folks who don't have any of these experiences.
Right.
It's like almost like a foreign world
Mm-hmm.
that people are hearing, and there's also so much negative connotation that comes with returning citizens.
For sure.
And there's obviously a high recidivism rate.
Right.
But stories like yours need to be given greater platforms.
Definitely.
This is how people change.
Yep.
So I think there's folks here who have an impression of, whether you should be able to get a job as easily. I know when you get out of prison and you have that conviction on your record, a returning citizen doesn't get to return
And with the same opportunity.
like a normal citizen.
Not at all. And I actually have one example, and I'm going to let you finish, is when I had came home, it was hard for me to get a job. I finally got a job at McDonald's. Worked there, was the employee of the month. Obviously, I got great work ethic. And then I got a job I got my job back at Infinity, where I worked before I went to prison. So, to be able to have those jobs was great, but I knew that I wanted to have a career. Having a job and a career is two different things. Absolutely. So when I was still, I think at Morgan State, or maybe just graduated, I was looking at an opportunity to work at M&T Bank as a banker. Went through the interview process. Maybe interviewed 6 different times. It was a grueling process. And once I got to the end, they said the FDIC isn't going to allow us to hire you because of your background. I was devastated.
Yeah.
I was extremely devastated, disappointed, depressed. But I recognized that I had to fight for who I was and fight for my character and understand that I changed. But a lot of people go through the same thing.
Well, I was just going to say, too, a lot of people get to that point
Mm-hmm.
and they fall back.
Yep.
And, look, I know you you're not one to look for accolades or, look for people to say how impressed they are or anything.
I don't care about recognition and being exalted. I want to exalt others.
Well, but some of your ability to do that also, I think, hinges on your ability to accept that kind of praise.
Right, yeah.
Because it really is such an impressive story. And I think it really speaks to who you are. And that's why I really so appreciative that you took the time out of your day to sit down here and go over some of your story. And I really hope, it can, if folks are listening, there's two vastly different ends of the spectrum. Those who are experiencing what you have gone through and need to make those changes in their life.
Right.
And those who have never heard a story like yours.
Right.
Or never lived that kind of life.
Right.
And to be able to appreciate the amount of work and energy and against all the odds.
Right.
And so, look, again, I appreciate you coming out here.
I do want to say one last thing for the
Yeah.
people who may not have experienced those things. You too also go through things, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. But understand that that's just a test, and you can overcome it just like me, with the experience that I've gone through, because we're human. We all face some type of battle, internally, physically, but just fight, and never give up and just keep pushing.